What made you say, man, people are dumb? I was driving on the interstate yesterday evening. Traffic wasn't that heavy. There was a semi that was on the shoulder ready to get back on the road, so the car in front of me comes to a complete stop to let this truck on the road. Naturally, I had to come to a sudden stop, and so did the semi behind me. Thankfully, there was no one in the left lane, so the semi was able to get around me, but if there was someone in the left lane, an accident would have happened, and I likely would have taken the brunt of it. Don't stop on an interstate. Yeah, and while you're at it, don't stop anywhere in the middle of traffic. It's also true when you're standing on the side of the road, waiting for traffic to go by so that you can run across, and you're like, okay, here comes the last car, and as soon as they go past me, I'll just run across. And then they slowly slow down, and then they come to a stop so that you can run out. And it's like, I know you're trying to be nice, but if you had just gone straight through, I would have been able to go sooner. I trained up a new girl at work over the period of a few weeks. Emphasized that one of the most important things in the role is attention to detail. Wording things correctly, showing pride in your work. Day one without me, begin sending emails to customers that look like they were written by a 6-year-old, using the letter U instead of you, THX instead of thanks, and XOXO at the end of her signature. I laughed so hard. She was fired 2 days later. I mean, it is kind of crazy that there are people that make it all the way into adulthood just still being completely oblivious as to how the world really works. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not that surprised. I see people like that all the time. A girl in one of my college classes didn't understand how dogs in Spain understood their owners. She thought dogs only understood English and were just lost as heck in any other country. Another friend, now 27 and in the working world, recently called me to ask what interest is because they keep charging this interest thing on my loans. Like, what even is that? Well, they can only charge you that if you're interested in it, so if you lose interest, then you don't have to pay the interest. Does that make sense? Finding out people who can't swim will take their children who also can't swim to water parks and get into wave pools expecting tubes and floaties to keep them alive. Wave pools are dangerous enough, even for people who can swim. Why would anyone who can't swim willingly get into one? Go to a water park, sure, but stick with the shallower rides that aren't full of waves designed to knock people around. Plus, I don't think I've ever seen a wave pool that wasn't just completely packed with people. It's almost like people go into those just trying to drown. Someone who had been trying a Mediterranean diet, on the advice of their doctor, managed to put on 15 kilograms in the 4 weeks since they were advised to do so. The classic fish and vegetables approach they had fervently adhered to had comprised of eating nothing but deep-fried fish and chips from the local chippy, every day for 4 weeks. You know, one of the weirdest things to me is that even after thousands of years of humans being alive, like, we still haven't seemed to figure out exactly what kind of food is good or bad. And some people seem to think like, oh, as long as it's not just packed full of sugar, like, you know, lots of chocolate and sweets, then everything else is just good for you, it's fine. The Cleveland balloon disaster of 1986. At that time, the city of Cleveland attempted to set a Guinness World Record by releasing over 1.5 million balloons into the sky from one location. The resulting cloud was so thick that it temporarily shaded out the sun over part of the city. Many of the balloons went straight into Lake Erie, which interfered with a very urgent Coast Guard search and rescue mission. The victims were found dead several days later. Most of the remaining balloons drifted up to Canada, where they promptly deflated and littered natural areas en masse. For weeks, the shoreline was covered in pieces of rubber. The Guinness Book of World Records refused to recognize the stunt due to its severe negative impact on the environment. Many of the participants seemed genuinely shocked that the balloons eventually fell back down to the ground. Imagine if all balloons that were left into the air just went up into space and eventually just started creating rings around the Earth of just helium balloons. How do you convert meters to pounds? This was in high school, but it still hurts that it was wrong on so many levels. Well, don't get too ahead of yourself on this one. Converting a measure of length to a measure of weight, of course, wouldn't make any sense. But converting that measure of length to a measure of currency, that could make sense in certain contexts. Someone said if you ever wanted to know what it would be like to have telepathy, just look at Facebook and tell me it would still be a cool power. Yeah, ever since social media became a thing, a lot of people seem to think that every thought they ever have needs to be shared with everybody. So you don't even need telepathy, you already know what everybody's always thinking. I rent cars. I had a lady try to rent a car from me. She didn't have a driver's license and got mad when I didn't rent to her. Ah, what? You have to actually be able to drive them to be able to rent them? What kind of rule is that? Watching the leaders at my work repeatedly purchase huge new computer programs for every dumb freaking task they dream up, because they're too stupid and ignorant to use Word, Excel, or Outlook instead. They almost always involve the cloud, a huge upfront fee like $5,000 to $50,000, plus an ascending monthly fee for support, and are hopelessly complex and are overreaching for the petty crap we actually have to do. It's infuriating beyond words how arrogant these people are year after year. And then everyone's so baffled why 6 months later, the company went out of business? How did that happen? On my last trip to Disneyland, I was waiting in line to enter the park. Recently, due to crappy people doing crappy things, Disney has implemented a security checkpoint. This includes a bag check and a metal detector. It moves fast, it's easy, it takes maybe 3 minutes out of your day. As I was standing there, from behind me, I heard a telltale sound of someone running in flip-flops. I turned around and there was a family of 5 sprinting towards the checkpoint, all in matching shirts, looking like they were running for their lives. I think a parade was about to start or something. Clearly, their lives would end if they didn't make it inside in time to see the old man from up waving on a float. The mom and the 3 kids slowed down a little to find a security line. The dad didn't. Desperate times called for desperate measures. If he didn't get little Jimmy inside in time to see Mona, crap was going to hit the fan. The dad blew straight past the bag check, jostling a few people, and continued right through the metal detector. The alarm went off, but he didn't stop. Not yet. A security guard jumped in front of him, threw out an arm, and clotheslined him. By the time I got through the line, they had pulled the guy and his completely mortified family off to the side, and were attempting to escort them out of the park. The guy was confused, angry, and volatile. What did they mean he couldn't go in? What did they mean he was now a security risk? He's here on vacation. I ended up walking away, just close enough to hear an angry, "But we bought tickets!" If I had 3 days and a PowerPoint presentation, I still don't think I could explain to that man what he did wrong. By the way, the parade was baller. See, I basically made it a rule that I will only ever go to an amusement park if it's on like a very not crowded day. Like, I cannot even imagine why anyone would go to Disneyland on like Christmas. Because you're paying obscene amounts of money to be shoulder to shoulder with people, you can't experience anything, you're waiting in 3-hour lines for everything, so it's just a huge waste in so many ways. First responder here. One thing that always gets me is when I put a road closed sign up for one reason or another. Red flares and orange cones are also used to block the road, yet we always have to have someone stand there too, because inevitably some dummy will either try to drive through it anyway, or will come up and block other traffic nearby to ask, "Is this road closed?" Well, I'm gonna have to fire back a little bit on this one, because I've seen so many times where you'll have some road workers come up, put a road closed sign out, and then be working on the road for like 2 hours, and then they'll just get finished, and then they'll go home. But they'll leave the sign there, because I guess it's somebody else's job to come pick up the sign, which happens like a week later. And so people are just like, there's a sign there, but it doesn't look closed. So I think a lot of people just don't really trust a lot of road closed signs for that reason. A lady bought a crib. When she bought the crib, she earned a $50 gift card. She spent the gift card, then tried to return the crib, and couldn't understand why her refund was short $50. Well, it would have been a pretty interesting exploit if she could get away with that. Once, during a particularly slow day at my old office, I made a trip to the break room. In addition to the various tables and uncomfortable chairs that adorn the space, there are a few vending machines that dispensed a variety of bottled beverages. These machines could be operated in much the same way as any other on the face of the planet. After paying for a product, a person would enter a code, a letter and a number, specifying what they'd like to purchase, then wait patiently while a series of ominous thumping noises accompanied the delivery of the item in question. This is not a difficult concept to master. As I was approaching to procure a drink for myself, though, I found my path obstructed by a young man who was seemingly intent on the same goal. He went through the precise motions that I outlined above, indicated his sugar water of choice, and then became thoroughly distraught when his selection arrived. "Aw, man," the guy yelled. "Where's my Coke? Where's my Coke, man? Crap, this ain't my Coke." Now, lest you think that someone had stocked the beverage incorrectly, let me reassure you. This machine was the sort with a large window covering its front, which gave potential customers a view of their choices. Furthermore, the bottles of Coca-Cola took up the entire level of the row marked with an E, whereas the bottles of Sprite, which is what the young man wound up with, were located at the C level. Despite this, the fellow had somehow chosen the wrong thing. "Did you see that?" he said, turning to me. "Did you see that crap? Aw man, where's my Coke?" I shrugged and offered the guy a bewildered smile, then suggested that he bring the drinks to the office concierge if he wanted to request a refund. "Nah man," came the response. "Nah, I'm good." With that, he turned and slid several more coins into the machine's receptacle, regarded its contents, and selected another Sprite. "Aw man, you see that? You see that? It did it again. Where's my Coke? That ain't my Coke, man." Looking incredibly irritated, the young man grabbed his second Sprite and stormed from the break room. I bought a root beer. Man, that might be the most pretentious story I've ever read on this channel. Like, dude, this is Reddit. You're not writing a novel. I had to sit next to a lady on a plane that was listening to music on her headphones and singing out loud. Needless to say, it was annoying, and she sounded like a moron because they were noise-canceling headphones. Good thing I also had headphones. The people around me were not so lucky. It was a 45-minute flight, and she could be heard singing maybe 30 minutes of it. You know, a lot of people like to complain when they hear somebody on public transit playing their speakers out loud, but I think something like this is an even worse version of that. My girlfriend is flying international next week. As we were checking regulations of what to pack, I read that bringing televisions on the plane was prohibited. What dude tried to do that? That rule exists because someone tried to do it. Yeah, it's so funny when you see a rule that makes you think like, why do I need to be told this? I think my favorite was when I went to a Six Flags last year, and a whole bunch of the rides I saw had this rule of like, you must have at least one functional arm with working fingers, and like at least one functional leg or something like that. And this wasn't like the very bottom rule 25 or something, this was like the top of the rule list. This girl fell in a pond, and then she said, I don't know, this water feels like wetter than most water. That's probably because you're not used to falling in water with your clothes on. In high school, I overheard a group of kids arguing over how a baby is made. It went something like this. Is the sperm the baby or is the egg? I think it's the sperm, like it burrows into the eggshell and turns into a baby. No, it's the egg that's the baby. The sperm just tells it to turn into a baby. Yeah, but why can't you just tell your egg to make a baby then? I can't tell my eggs what to do. Can you tell your sperm what to do? High school was great. You should have just walked up to him and said, but which came first, the sperm or the egg? Jet fuel can't melt steel beams. As if you need to melt a metal to bend it like soft butter. Illiterate blacksmiths understood this in the Bronze Age. But hey, this guy can Google the temperature at which steel melts and the maximum temperature at which jet fuel burns. See, we always need stories like this one in the video just to spice up the comments section, to start some fights. CBD did a bit on the first Flat Earth National Convention in Vancouver. One of the guys they interviewed said, if the Earth is round, how come water in lakes isn't round as well? Flat Earthers should have their genitals confiscated. Oh yeah, well if the Earth is flat, then how do you explain mountains? You know, I was actually thinking about Flat Earthers today, because a lot of them seem to have issue with the way that we explain gravity, and they think that a lot of the explanations we have for these things are just too ridiculous to believe. Yet, the explanations they come up with are just as ridiculous, if not more so, and have way more things that they need to explain for than the official narrative. I listened to a call at work yesterday where a grown adult man called in to say he left his charger at home and wanted us to send a charge to his phone. I just don't... what? Look man, I know you traveled here from the future, but we don't have that technology yet. Guy at the pump next to me started berating me for being on my cell phone while my car was filling up with gas. Said I apparently didn't give a crap that I was going to blow up the gas station. After pointing out the logical flaws in his argument, why aren't you moving your car in fear of an explosion? What will explode? My phone, my car, or the gas pump? The guy at the pump behind my car decided to chime in and share his opinion on my carelessness for using my cell phone at the gas pump. Well, the lithium battery has been known to just combust sometimes, but I'm not going to give them that much credit. But I hope you enjoyed all of the stupidest things people have done. I've done so many of these, I feel like I might run out soon. But the stupidest thing I did this week was I accidentally locked my keys in my car, which I've been afraid of doing for years, and it finally happened. So I had to call my mom at like 11 p.m., have her find some spare key for my car hidden somewhere around in their house, and was able to come and save me so I didn't have to break a window. So shout out to my mom, I'm sure you're very honored to be shouted out in a video of really stupid people. But that's all for today.